right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Horimiya, episode 10. Double digits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, almost done with this wonderful show.
Mm-hmm. Only a few more left.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
Last episode, we had some wonderful antics. The continuation of Hori and Mia's kink exploration in public.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yes, indeed. We also had a new character.
Yeah.
That,
Tanihara.
Has a little bit of a past with Mia.
Yep, just a bit.
And
It was
he's trying
complicated.
he's trying to kind of reconnect a bit with Miyamura.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Nice
Getting
you
some
put in the
cakes.
effort.
Coming back in.
Yep, and fruit tarts apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Awesome.
Very much customer. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But we'll have to see how that goes moving forward, because, that was just the first step.
Right. Especially given that there's a possibility that he sees Mia, he'll see Hori again. And Hori really gave him a thrashing.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would hate seeing that again. If it's warranted. If it's warranted.
Right,
of course.
Of course.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Not that she would be into that as well, but, she would do that to Miyamura, right?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Or,
wait,
no.
no. So, y'all,
Point
without
is-
further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So this episode.
This episode was very different from previous episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got, for the most part, it was dedicated to Yuki as a character. Cool.
Yeah, Yuki had a good bit of focus in previous episodes,
Mm-hmm.
but this was the moment where the rubber really met the road here, and that everything accelerated for her with Toru in a positive direction, in that they are going to have some kind of a relationship after this.
Yep.
It's going to be a little bit, on rocky kind of ground for the beginning bit, of course, but it seems like it's headed in a good direction, because Toru's a good boy, and Yuki's very insecure, but she is much more able and willing, I would say, to communicate her feelings on certain things now that we've gone through this. However,
and yet
she kind of got rewarded for doing things
quite badly.
Yeah.
Like it's something where, and that can totally happen in life, where
it just happens. Yeah.
Right. It's just like, okay, it ended up going well for you. Cool. He ended up looking at you, and suddenly it's like, oh, I kind of like this girl, right? But
yeah, the fake thing became real.
Yep. But like there were so many things in this episode where I felt like lessons weren't learned. Like,
yeah, but that's not the point of the episode then.
Yeah, and with Yuki as a character, she's one that is very much down on herself. So sort of getting that kind of lucky break where it's like, hey, it's okay. You don't need to be super down on yourself.
You'll take time to learn the lesson.
Right. You can take time to learn the lesson, and hey, you still get the win, right? Like okay, cool.
Yeah. Because a lot of this was about the fact that other characters would come by and be like, hey, Yuki, like, you need to say what it is that you want.
Right.
Now, one of the things that's really, I would say, kind of cool about this is that a lot of characters in, I would say, maybe romances specifically, who go after who they want, and oftentimes this is weirdly, like, sometimes towards specifically the women, are looked at as, like, bad, because they're, like, they're needy, like, they really are, like, desperate, or they want the characters or what have you.
Oh, okay.
And so Yuki is the opposite, in that she never says who she really wants, and yet she kind of manipulated the situation to where
totally.
I mean, but the idea that like, she had no reason to believe that it would actually work. Like, if anything, this was more of a...
Well, and that's kind of where the nastier side of it came from, is that she didn't think it would work.
No.
And she did it anyways, right? Because it's the I don't want you to be happy in this way, because it's a reminder of the way in which I am not happy.
Right.
Therefore, I'm going to take away your happiness. And while we did end up getting something that was kind of like a cathartic resolution for Sakura, like, who knows, from the setup, she totally actually could have had something happen with Toru. Like if she hadn't been told that they were actually dating, like, Toru thought very highly of her to the point where he didn't almost didn't even take her confession seriously, because he thought that she was out of his league. So like
which I think you have to use Toru as actually the axiom for a couple of things in this episode, because I think he kind of always liked Yuki. That's the point.
I wouldn't be surprised.
that-
Yeah.
This was just the perfect kind of setup to where he was like, oh, we have to pretend? Okay, well, this is just pretend. I'm not actually into you. No, of course not.
Yeah.
No. And that's the thing I think that's rather kind of weird with the way this was set up, is that we could have used more time with Toru to understand a little bit more of his situation in this.
Right, because he's had, like, you know, he liked Hori at the beginning of the series, right? So there's, like, Toru very much seems like the character that doesn't not that he doesn't know himself, but that he's very much like in the present, right? So he can be surprised by himself, you know,
Right.
like with the liking Hori, but then also like, you know, maybe he also might like guys, you know, and then like, oh, and then suddenly he likes Yuki, right? Or previously when Sakura gave him the cookies, and it's no, I like the Sakura ones specifically. I really would like to get more of these Sakura cookies, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, cool, but yeah, I don't know. Like,
yeah, it's kind of the thing of where when we this is an interesting thing about romances specifically, is a lot of the wooing process is extremely manipulative in that right, but it's something that we look at, I would say, with generally fondness, because it's the desire and that we have a person who's crushing and they can't help their feelings, so they're going to try and basically convince that other person that I am worthy of your attention, basically. And yet, at times, if you look, like, if you break it down as to what it is a form of trying to basically stir up that feelings within them.
Okay, and that gets into the thing that we have very different perspectives on, of what constitutes as manipulation versus just trying to, you know, get something from a person, you know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And you know, and I can't stomach the idea of saying that trying to be attractive to somebody is manipulation, but
right, but it gets into methodology does matter, and that's what this was that the methodology that Yuki used is something that we would both look at as very immature,
right, and something
that
I that reveals something about her that I feel like she won't ever really be able to address if it stays within her. Like, if she doesn't ever like not that she specifically has to, like, say, apologize to Sakura. I think that would be a great thing to do, but that's you can have an internal, like a good day or a bad day that can change on a dime, right? And so if all of these kinds of, like, thoughts and decisions and things like that just stay sort of swirling around in here, then one day you could think like the situation's fixed, and then the next day it's worse than it was before.
Yeah, you know? That's why this is kind of those one of those weird things where the show almost reveals its own structural fallacies, in that we kind of needed like 3 episodes on this, and it feels like we didn't even get
like,
one.
Well, because like the previous, like, I love Yuki as a character, right? I loved
Yuki's great. Yeah,
like I loved the previous episode where she got a lot of focus, where she was dealing with all of these nasty feelings towards Sakura because of how things were going between her and Toru.
Yeah,
cool, love it, awesome, good exploration, good, like, yes, that's good character stuff. But I don't know, like,
I feel
this kind of felt like it came out of the blue.
Okay, because to me, this is the thing where I feel like this is a way to separate based on the outcome and what you'd like to see happen.
Sure.
Here.
Okay.
Is that too many people, I think, in stories look at something as where it's like, the character needs to learn the lesson here so that they can grow. I don't think that's a given in narrative. And one of the things that's interesting with this here is that she didn't necessarily have life basically force her into a situation where she has to learn. She, if anything, kind of made some decisions that made other people come to her and be like, hey, what's going on? What's the deal? They don't force her into learning the lesson, because that's not how people do things.
Right.
No one really cares whether you figure out your selfishness or your insecurities or something like that. They care about you, but if you're ultimately going to have, you know, your life's course and direction basically push you in a situation where you still don't fully change out of that,
right?
They don't really care.
Totally.
That's just the way life is.
And yet the pushback that I would give for that is that doesn't necessarily mean that there needs to be a story about it. someone washing their hands is realistic, right? But I don't want to see a story that's just about someone washing their hands, right?
Yeah, but that's hyperbole. And
well,
what I
no,
would
no,
say,
but it's hyperbole, the same kind of thing to make a point, right?
Well-
If there are things that if we're going to set up the lesson that the person needs to learn, and like that's what the most of the time with Yuki seems to have been, of setting up that lesson that she very much does need to learn, and then the resolution is that she doesn't end up needing
how do you
to
know
learn
this is
the
a
lesson.
resolution though?
This
This is just another point in it. The thing that I'm
Sure.
arguing with you, that I'm with you on this, is that the build up to this could have been longer so that we get better understanding of Toru specifically, and then a little bit more with Sakura. I think the Yuki stuff is fine, because I totally see this happen all the time. In fact, this is more relatable than if this magically worked out where she learns her lesson and yet also gets the happy ending.
Yeah, totally.
So I'd rather have the lesson get pushed back as you don't know. High school romances almost never also go all the way. So I would say that this is the kind of thing where she'll have to address this at some point in the future.
Maybe like and
But the fact that he potentially always liked her,
the thing is, I have not seen I don't track with you on that one. I feel like this is something where it just sort of all of a sudden happened. Maybe, like when he called her to the roof, it very much seemed like it was a, hey, we need to talk about this, right? She seemed to have this understanding that we were in a relationship and all that stuff, and then it looked like he had an aha moment of, actually, I wouldn't mind this relationship being legit, right? Like it not just being a thing that's fake, but let's have it actually be real.
But then why not turn that on him as like wait, are you like, because there could be some. I mean, if you look at it like just in the simplest bit, then are his feelings then really genuine? Like there's ways you could look at this to where it's they're both immature in that regard. So why is hers?
Oh yeah, that's actually a
then
pretty
he's
good
basically
point.
just taking advantage of the fact that it's obvious that she likes him. So he's like, oh,
well, I mean,
I really liked the way we held hands.
Yeah, I mean, genuine feelings from someone can definitely create genuine feelings in another person, because if someone likes you, that's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah,
right?
it's the whole thing in Bunny Girl Senpai. With the girl that was like, I'm gonna try over and over and over again until you eventually fall in love with me.
Yeah. I'd say that's a pretty good example of, like as a parallel, because like time was very much stopped for Yuki here, right? It's something where nothing was progressing, right? And she knew that it had to come to an end eventually, right? And eventually it did, right?
Yeah.
The facade, the lie, basically, burned away in the morning sun, right?
Right. Yeah.
It just turns out that the thing that actually replaced it was something that was very beneficial to her, right?
Right.
She got lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And in that respect, that makes it more of a thing of where she believed, really, she hoped long enough that there was a shot at this, and over the course of the time that Toru did agree to fake the relationship for all that time with her. I think that personally he didn't just necessarily do that just because he was friends.
Yeah,
I think there was some aspect of this where he's like, I actually kind of like this.
Yeah, and
that's why I wish we had more time with him. Because I feel like we could have understood that. Yeah, he likes her a little bit.
Because we had or at least I, and I believe you too, had a misunderstanding about the dynamic between the characters before this episode, where we actually thought that actually Sakura and Toru were dating, or something, like not necessarily like high school official,
Okay, so I didn't think that they were dating. What I thought it was that they had some kind of like an understanding,
right? Like
that they both kind of liked each other,
right? Not necessarily,
but they weren't official,
right? Not stamped at boyfriend, girlfriend, or anything like
nothing
that.
like that.
But there was that understanding. So when all of a sudden there's a time skip, and it's we've been pretending to be boyfriend and girlfriend for who knows months, right? Like enough to the point where there's rumors going around the school about it. And when Sakura asks Yuki like if they're dating, she can just say yes, and she believes it, and the lie won't be found out from her talking to someone else, right?
To her, from her perspective, she probably doesn't feel like Yuki needs to apologize to her because they've just been dating.
Know. Yeah, exactly, right. And that's probably that's probably the thing that makes me the most like, oh, okay, about this, is because then Yuki kind of gets away with it scot-free, right? And
Again, we have time after this that we could.
Yes, it
focus on this more.
totally could be explored more, but
Yeah.
but since this episode did seem to be a resolution, even if it's not like the full final resolution.
Yeah, it felt to me more like it was a. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I was just gonna say.
Given the fact that we are at this was episode 10, and we have
Right.
what 3 episodes
Three
left.
episodes left, yeah.
3 episodes left in the show. I am not confident that this will like necessarily get more content, right?
I'm
because
with you.
because with the amount of time that they focused on Yuki's character arc and everything in the story thus far, it's been a decent amount of time, and I've really enjoyed the amount of time that it's gotten, right? But I don't necessarily think we'll get anything more of exploring this. We might see them as a couple, like, as like side characters or supporting cast in the show, but not like this kind of the episodes about them kind of focus. And given that, the cathartic realization that Sakura had feels cheapened, given the fact that it's built on a lie, and then the fact that Yuki ended up getting what she wanted. I feel like what was the point of the struggle that she had of like pining over this, especially if there was a chance that Toru liked her, because if they were doing this fake dating thing for so long, why would it be so impossible in her mind that he actually could like her?
Because of her insecurities. Because
Yeah.
of the way she's like literally cannot see herself in a positive way, so much so that she rejected not only the super hot guy, but specifically did it thinking that there was because we found out here that Toru kind of liked her, is that she really, really likes Toru. Like that's where her heart's always been.
Totally.
Now, if you really, really like someone, you do not think about like whether there's a possibility or not.
Right. And yeah,
you're overridden with the
right.
This
We
is
are
what
all
I
fools
want.
in love.
Yeah. So I do not understand critiquing her in that regard. That is absolutely just no, she liked Toru. That's why it's the whole thing of in this episode the sister was like, you turned on this high school meal, what is wrong with you, And it's like, yeah,
right.
Yeah, we get it.
No, I don't have an issue with the fact that she likes Toru.
Right. But
I
just
have
the
an issue
idea
with
of
how it was resolved.
No, I know, but
Okay.
why she believed there was no chance though all the way through that is because it was built on a lie. There was nothing that she had done in her mind that communicated enough to him that he would end up, reciprocating the feeling.
Right. It's
I feel like that's how high school crushes be. Is
totally.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's something where I felt like what was being set up to me is the fact that she's going to basically have to wake up and smell the roses one day, right? Of like, hey, he doesn't like her. That's and will she be able to accept that? Will she be able to come to terms with that? Will she be able to still be friends with Sakura? Like all of these different things. And the fact that isn't when it ended up happening, it's not that kind of ending couldn't happen, but I felt like it came out of nowhere, and then the stuff that happened before ended up kind of just being wasted time maybe, because she didn't even end up learning the lesson that she was set up to need to learn.
Right. I just don't understand why a story has to set up a character to learn a lesson. That
They
feels more like
they don't
logic,
have to.
Yeah.
But if they are setting up a lesson to be learned, right? Like okay, would you agree that there was the setup that there is a lesson that Yuki could use to learn?
I mean, that was literally this episode of
right.
Yeah.
Like there were multiple characters saying you need to learn this, right? So that's setting up that she needs to learn a lesson.
Right. And she still has to learn the lesson.
But if there's nothing else that we get, theoretically, if they have another episode that goes into this and we explore it more and all that stuff,
right?
Cool. But if this is the end of it,
still, then it's just a thing of where that's the thing is that they'll have to figure that stuff out at some point, especially if they stay together through all this. But I don't think that's. So then it's a build up in the story for something that is going to happen out of the story, and then you have to assume that the audience will basically finish the story in their own heads themselves for whatever happens later. Like no. I'm saying basically that this is an instance of something where I am okay with the character basically having to live with the fact that they never really learned their lesson. That's unsatisfying in the plot development side of things for me, but also like this is the kind of story where it's like it's very clearly like having a lot of like jumping around and stuff like that, and like in terms of like being an anime like adaptation of a manga and stuff like that, it very clearly has stuff that's getting like chopped around and cut up and stuff like that.
The whole thing is suddenly it's winter and all that stuff is a great example.
Yeah, it's a great example of that. So I'm not in any like, oh, this needs to go a certain way kind of vibe with this. But I totally get what you're saying, and that the setup went in a way that I definitely did not expect.
Yeah, it just kind of left me with this feeling of like, huh? But yeah.
But in terms of having the story focus on the ways in which a lot of the characters are insecure in their relationships, though, I'm really glad that in any way that they decide to do it after this, if they focus more on Yuki and Toru's pseudo kind of relationship that they've got here, there could be some really cool opportunities for that insecurity to pop up again, because I do feel like that this is something that, while it is a resolution in that the characters, kind of confessed,
right? Like one got what she wanted, and then the other one, like, had the cry over the fact that she didn't get what she wanted.
Yeah, I guess that's the simplest way to put it. But basically, they just had their big moments here. You could absolutely buck expectations and continue with it.
That's true.
Especially given how fast-paced this story is.
Yes, and it has set an expectation precedent, etc., of bucking convention in the past. So, yeah. But I'm totally with you on the I wish we had gotten more Toru focus, because then the kind of the surprise for Yuki of Toru actually likes her would have been something that I would have expected, and then that way it could have been like a thing of as she's like distressing over all of this.
Yeah, that's why I don't have much problems with the resolution, because I don't think about things in terms of that they need to have a lesson that they learn. I feel like that's more based on the idea of a progression of the like, oh, this is the resolution type that we are going to have. But as to regards to like what is the resolution, I'm more going on like promise answer, like make promise, deliver on promise. Like if you set me up to expect one thing, like unless it's a show that is, or a story that is specifically about like twists and stuff, then deliver basically on what you set up, on what you promise. And if you don't, then make it be something. Then I want to, when that twist happens, for me to be like, yes, that's right. You knew what I wanted when I didn't even know what I wanted. That kind of thing. Yeah,
like, it's dicey to get into that kind of territory where you set expectations for one thing and then you do something different. And
right. Yeah. And I feel like what I got set up expectations wise
was satisfied.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there's not a black and white way of looking at this. Is that I think that I expected Yuki and Toru to, on some level, have some kind of emotional confrontation of sorts.
Okay, yeah.
And we got that. The result after that was that they ended up together.
Sure.
The important thing for me was that they had this conversation. And what it led to was that in the moment he decided, you know what?
I actually like her.
I like her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I want build up more with him, because I understand the process that brought her to this point.
Right.
I don't fully understand as much the process that brought Toru to this point.
Which then
so
I
had
it
to
feel arbitrary.
So that's where I need to go, instead of afterwards, I need to go backwards and fill in a few of the blanks myself by being like, why did he choose to be with her for all this time? And I think there were little establishing shots and stuff to show that he did have some kind of special attention that he was putting her direction, but she was completely oblivious to all of that, which I feel like was properly set up, so that when she did this, she was basically like, oh, well, actually, he initiated it. She thought it was over. She literally thought it was over, and then she was going to, at the very least, have to, move on as if I had spoken up, if I had done something, maybe it could have been different.
Yeah.
So in that respect, she has the potential to maybe learn her lesson, in that his point of being like, she's like, oh, you're so stupid, Toru, which is kind of the thing of like, no, you're dumb. Why I like you, kind of stuff like that.
Right.
He's like, no, not as dumb as you. Basically, if you had clued in, If you had,
sure.
if you had been paying attention, if you had valued yourself more,
right?
If you had seen this way it was going, I always like kind of liked you a little bit.
And that's one of the sweet aspects of the way this goes is that it's the hey, despite all of the things that you're kind of that you've been doing to basically
disqualify yourself,
both in how you see yourself, but also the things that you do that might actually make you be disqualified.
Right.
That's okay.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Because in the midst of you being your messy self, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe you are the what was the two adjectives she used for like muddy and like
muddy and gross or something.
Yeah, muddy and gross, you know.
Something like that.
You might have parts of you that are muddy and gross, but that can be okay.
Right. And I think that's the theme of the story as a whole, is that characters have sides of themselves that they believe are so horrible that no one could love them, that no one could be with them, or that they are unworthy of having relationships and stuff like that. And the Horimiya kind of side of it is the most well-executed side of it. This one is a little bit muddy in the execution, but I totally get the idea that, oh, she saw a side of herself that was gross. I'm a liar. I'm doing all these things. I screwed all this up. And he's like, yeah, I might potentially see all that. I'm willingly participating in the deception to help this kind of thing go about, even though I don't know exactly why it's coming about because of the results leading to a thing of, oh, I guess she ended up not really demanding an answer out of me in the confession side because she thought we were dating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is probably why that Sakura wasn't present in the previous episode, not like the just previous episode, but an episode where this notion was brought up. Is because, well, you can't have her know that it's a fake, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So in that respect, I totally am with you in that I feel like the build-up could have been handled way better, but the actual resolution itself, I don't really have a problem with it because it was more in the conversation than as to whether or not their dating relationship is something that they get as some kind of, like she gets as some kind of reward.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's the partner that is a reward kind of a thing is something that I'm generally not a fan of.
Right, and I'm not meaning it in that like hard literal way, but just the idea that this was the full
thing that
resolution.
she wanted, you know, or wait.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But also that is, I feel like by the nature of there being more episodes, the story doesn't necessarily end fully here for them.
Yeah.
And it very well could, but it doesn't have to. So
I guess
will hold out on that side of things until the show's over.
I guess it's something where Sakura totally doesn't need to find out at this point. Like if she didn't find out in this episode that Yuki had lied to her, then there's no real reason to find out.
Toru lied to her as well in a lot of ways. Toru helped lie. That's why the thing I don't want to abstain Toru from this is that Toru participated in the deception for Yuki to everyone.
I guess that's one of the other reasons why this kind of bothers me a little bit is that the idea of let's pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend was for a stranger who they didn't know very well, that wasn't even near to their friend group or their social circle. Right. So I just kind of figured that naturally you're not going to have that facade also maintained to the people in your social circle. Like it's oh yeah, no, he totally helped me out because there's this guy that I wanted to reject, and like
and
I would think the word of that would spread to Sakura, right? And that she would be aware of what the situation was.
Except, they're not really friends, no. So I guess that's it's really just Hori and Mia that are in the core friends group.
I guess.
Yeah. And that's the thing where I really feel bad for Sakura, but this kind of thing in terms of people having someone else almost outmaneuver them in the game of love basically happens so often.
Totally.
And it's so that's why I think on some level we put up with a certain level of wooing because it's just pursuit. It's the idea of being like, oh, I'm interested in you. Are you interested in me?
The things that you do that are kind of all fair game, right? If it's we both like the same person, well, I'm going to beat you, right? It's like, okay, yeah, sure, Right. But if, suddenly it's the no.
Yeah, but I think there's this large gray area that people are like, ooh, Ooh,
Well, hence the saying "all's fair in love and war." You know.
Yeah, but that's also bullshit.
Oh,
and
no,
everyone
no,
knows that.
totally. It's a way to excuse a lot of nasty things, but
Yeah, and that's why they put war in the mix in there
Exactly,
to
'cause
show
that's
you
the
that
thing that it's being
that's-
compared to.
Well, right, that's the scale at which
Right.
sometimes it gets to.
Yeah.
But,
And also for the whole thing of if you're going to have a character not be aware of something that's happening in the social circle, Sakura is the character to have that happen with because she is the quiet, withdrawn person, right? So if someone's going to be out of the loop with regards to something
sure.
that's happening, it totally makes sense to be her.
Well, yeah, and also I kind of saw her more as not in that friend group. I saw her as part of the student council kind of group. She wasn't really ever hanging out ever
Right.
with Hori and Mia in like a group setting.
Sure.
That like I don't think that ever happened in the story. Like maybe it happened once, but I think that was more just that they bumped into the student council group.
Sure.
So I didn't really feel like she was ever in their friend group. And also with the way this story is so like
chop chop.
Chop chop. I felt like they were trying to lightly touch upon the student council for the purpose of having some eventual drama there, but they were very clearly a separate storyline going on from the Horimiya kind of story group. And that's why poor Toru and Yuki are the ones that make sense plot-wise to get together, because they're both caught in the middle of this kind of thing.
They're going to spend a lot of time together.
They're the odd ones out, basically.
Yeah.
Even though I guess they were both a part of the original pairings group, but then their friends each started dating each other.
Right.
So now they're left with each other.
And this is the one other thing. I know I've been saying so much stuff this episode, but with the in the context of wanting more stuff from Toru,
yeah.
If there was an understanding between him and Sakura of some kind,
Sure.
like I would think there would have been more communication or understanding or awareness of the potential delicacy of the situation with Sakura, you know, like when it comes to how he interacts with Yuki and things, and like I don't know, like
yeah, again, more Toru.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. Toru's my favorite character, and I'm just like, oh man, this was such a sweet moment. He was being such a cool guy here in this instance, trying to be all poetic and suave, and he comes across so awkward at times, and yet they end up understanding a little bit of where the other people are at, and then they're like, baka, and they head off. You know, your hands warm. It's like, oh, okay, like, oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
But like, could I have gotten like a full episode for Toru? I feel like that's why I also am not so like quick to be like, this isn't gonna work, is that we have 3 more episodes and Toru is still, I would say, like the third most important character in the story. If it's Hori and Mia in that order,
right,
like clearly in that order,
yeah,
the very next person that like seems to be like the big character,
that's a good point,
is Toru. Like,
the other characters
he is Miyamoto's best friend.
Right, and
he liked Hori.
And the other characters are far enough away from the main two to be like, oh yeah, you get like a half an episode or something to kind of be your time in the spotlight.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily need much more than that.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So. All right, well, very, very odd episode, but thank you all so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.